What's an educated mama?
Hello, I'm Ryan Jordan, and welcome to The Educated Mama. During this podcast, we will learn from experts, entrepreneurs, creators, and leaders who are also mothers responsible for all the things. Let's celebrate women, learn a few mom hacks, and discuss the beautiful mess of motherhood. We're all learning together, right? Today's guest is Dr. Natasha Beck. She is a child and family health expert and the founder of Dr. Organic Mommy, an online resource focused on pregnancy, parenting, and non-toxic living. All proceeds from her page go to charity. Natasha's parenting expertise is a combination of Waldorf, Montessori, and Rye philosophies, and she ties in cognitive, behavioral, and play therapy into her work. She founded Dr. Organic Mommy to help every family make healthy decisions for themselves and to help guide them on their parenting journey. She also holds a doctorate in clinical psychology, specializing in pediatric neuropsychology from Pepperdine University. She's an amazing mother of 3, and she actually mailed me my first Planet box. Let's meet our guest. Hi, Natasha. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You've been somebody who's been part of my life for the last, I would say, almost 4 years now. I've watched your family grow, and I've watched your Dr. Organic Mommy grow as well. And it's been really wonderful to see all of the growth that you've had over the years.
Thank you.
So we're going to jump right to it because I feel like I have a big list of questions for you. You are a box of knowledge. So I'm just going to start. Let's talk about children. They're at home most of the day. Some of the parents are transitioning their kids back into school slowly, but for the majority, kids are still at home, and it's almost been a year. Now, I know that in our household, I have a 4 and a 6-year-old, and without seeing their friends, they've become a little dysregulated, and I've noticed there's been a little bit more tantrums. So I'm curious to know, what is the best way to handle these tantrums?
Great question. So with tantrums, I like to view every tantrum as a teaching moment, not only for the child, but for you yourself as well. The most important thing with tantrums is to first rule out, are they tired? Are they hungry? Or do they have any, digestive issues going on? Because that can, increase their behavioral issues. When they do have a tantrum, look at what's going on. So I'm just going to give you an example. Your child you're serving them a snack and you peeled the banana and they wanted it sliced and they flip out. So they need to figure out how to process their feelings, how to handle them. Your job as the parent is not to make your child happy and just to feel better. Your job is to make them comfortable with being uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is to sit with them. When they're screaming at first and they're just yelling, there's no point in trying to talk to them because they're not physically able to listen or hear you and understand what you're trying to say. So you've just got to sit with them and wait till they're calm. And one of the things I like to say to children when they are in that fight or flight screaming mode, first you say, I know you're really mad. I can't hear you right now. And you point to your ears. When your body is calm, I can help you. And just sit with them. And just keep waiting. And then, wait a few minutes. If they're still going, I can't hear you. When your body is calm, I can help you. And then sooner or later, sometimes some kids take 5 minutes. Some kids can even take 40 minutes. I've seen both. And some kids will need a slight touch, will need like a hug while they're, decompressing. Some kids need a little bit of space, but you really don't want to leave young children away. You don't want to walk away, leave them in their room. You want to kind of stay present and let them know that you're there. So that way they feel safe and secure, and to know that they can always come to you, even though they might be yelling at you, saying, I don't like you, you're a mean mommy, whatever it may be. Just wait until they're calm. Once they are calm, then you kind of go through the steps. And I have these all outlined of how to handle a tantrum. And I have them all outlined on my page. So number 1, you want to validate what they're feeling, no matter what it is. If they were feeling scared, most of the time they're feeling mad, and let them know you were feeling really mad. Then you want to acknowledge what they were doing, no matter if it was wrong in your eyes. You really wanted to pour salt on the table. And I understand that pouring salt can be fun, but then correct. salt stays in the jar, instead of saying don't pour the salt, you want to tell them what to do instead or when they can do it. So that's kind of where you're explaining what's going on. So salt stays in the jar, but when, we go outside, you can, play, we can go to the park, you can play with sand. Obviously, I know we're home right now. I can take you to the bathroom. You can pour your bowls of water, because especially the toddlers, they're really into the concept of gravity, pouring things. And so you want to just let them know when they can do what they wanted to do or what they can do instead. Then you want to explain your role as a parent. It's my job to make sure you're safe, that your body is growing, and that you are a kind person. Those three things usually encompass everything that's going on, typically. You can it can fall under those three categories. And then say, it's my job to keep you, to make sure, you're safe. When you pour the bottle out like that, sand can get all over the place. It can get in your eyes. It's not comfortable. So it's my job to keep you safe. What I can do is present you with a different option. And then the most important thing, which most parents often forget, is to close the loop and say, I love you, and to close it. And so that way the child feels more secure and is able to calm their body down. And for older children, you can start to brainstorm different ways that they can calm their body down. What can you do instead when next time you're so upset, and they're screaming, or if they're kicking or whatever they may be doing? What are other options to do? When they start to be involved in the problem solving process, they tend to buy in more.
That's fantastic advice. And I love the idea of closing the loop, because sometimes I'll say, I love you almost too soon, and they can't hear, because they're so focused on their big idea that they can't process any of that except what they want when they want it. So I think that's really important to take a breath and save that for the end, when you have some really good eye contact and some really good listening, because that's when it's going to matter most. And that's when it's going to be heard and they'll feel supported more. So I appreciate that. That's great. Let's transition on over to fostering independent play. A lot of times I will be so excited about the activities I've set up. I'll say to my child, I've got a Lego station, I've got a kinetic sand station, I have puzzles, I have books, I have paint, I have all of these things. And I'll think to myself, okay, I just need 20 minutes to get this task finished. And I've presented them with so many great things. And 5 minutes later, I have both children looking at me, only wanting to play with me, not each other, not independent. So how do I foster independent play for my children?
Great question. So the way you want to do it first is looking at your environment. Oftentimes, if your environment is so overloaded and overstimulated with items, that it can be often very overwhelming for a child, and they don't really know where to start. So I love the idea of presenting them with activities, but instead I'd rather present them with one or two and say, which one would you like to start with? And then making sure that that activity is age appropriate, where they can actually handle it or do it on their own, and they wouldn't need any kind of assistance from you. So maybe lowering, the expectation or what the actual activity involves for their age range. And when you're looking at your environment, if you're looking at a play area, you don't always necessarily need to set up a specific activity. Okay, it's going to be painting time. They may not want to paint. What I like to do is follow the child's lead. You have certain things in your play area or wherever you have it set up, and just make sure to be mindful of how many things you have. So for a young child, say like a 2-year-old, I'm not going to have more than 4 or 5 items out. A basket of blocks, some silk scarves, a pretend kitchen, some pots and bowls and pretend food, and that's it. Otherwise, it becomes too much for them. And if they don't seem interested in actually going to play, what I want you to do is practice stepping back and sitting up against the wall or, farther away from them, about 10 feet at least, or however far you can get away from them, and not moving. When they do come to you, actually engage them and say, yes, I see you want me to come, play in the kitchen with you. I can see you from here. Why don't you go make something, or give them a suggestion, like you may go play in your kitchen and I can watch you from here. That way you're not getting up. And they have this battle and they're like, no, I want you to come. That's where it will fold into a tantrum. And then you go back to exercising those how to handle tantrum tips. And that's a teaching moment for them to figure out how to calm their body down. And you explain to them you don't want to get up, because in reality, when they go to school, they're going to want to play with certain kids, and not all kids are going to want to play with them. So especially during COVID, when your children aren't around other children, you're the other child as the parent. And so you need to provide opportunities for them to learn how to interact with others, not just by wanting to play with each other, but turn taking as well. And then other ways of fostering independent play. I know it's really difficult right now, especially when we have so much screen time and we're, getting so stimulated that they're requiring more stimulation as is expected. A, don't feel guilty because every parent is going through this. B, you can always detox. You can always decrease the amount of screen time whenever we get through this whole pandemic. So don't worry about that. So that's just, something to think about. It will get easier. There is light at the end of the tunnel. But be mindful if they are on Zoom in class, try to stay away from, giving too much screen time in other, ways. Instead of watching a movie, put on one of the apps that I love is called Sparkle Stories. It's an audio-based app, and it has various stories, depending on the child's age, and you can pick it on the child's age, on the topic. And it's a beautiful, beautiful app that I really do love. And I think they provide 30 days free, so you can actually try it out and see what your child thinks. And that way it's a little bit more calming. They're not straining their eyes. They're not getting so much stimulation. They're just getting some, auditory stimulation from there. And so those are kind of a few of my tips there.
Those are fantastic tips, because I know that there is a lot of guilt surrounding screen time right now with kids in Zoom school or virtual learning. And then we have parents that are both working from home without childcare, and the TV has become kind of the babysitter. And then, there's also parents that are giving different snacks now because they are at home every day. And, we're not as mindful. We're not as mindful. So for example, if I have a meeting or something's going on, I may prep food for the day, and my child may say, I don't want that. And they go into the pantry and they have their little areas of helping themselves. I know it's our job to decide what to offer them. It's their job what to eat. But my kids are going to grab the most sugary items. So I would love to talk to you a little bit about sugar. I saw you make a post about this. And I know that sugar also coincides with attitudes, behavior, tantrums. So we're trying to create an opportunity for our home to be as calm as possible during this pandemic. What do you recommend about sugar and intake right now?
Great question. So there's different types of sugar. There's refined sugar and unrefined sugar. Your refined sugars are all of your cane sugar, your corn syrup, your, dextrose, all the, various things that you see mainly in packaged foods or anything like where it says added sugar. At least now, added sugar is always a refined sugar. Your unrefined sugars are your fruits, your dates, your maple syrup, your honey. Those are a little bit more nutritious for you, especially with the fruits and the dates. They have fiber and other, nutrients that are helping you. They're not just going to give you that crazy high. But what I like to do with sugars and treats and dessert for meal times, I always like to present the child with their meal with fruit. So it's not creating that mystery of, oh, there's going to be dessert at the end. I want a cookie. I want this, or where's the dessert? Where's the treat? And what's so special about this versus my plate of food? And it takes the mystery away. And, you're going to probably ask, oh, what happens if my child only eats the fruit? Which is a common question. In reality, your child most likely will go back and forth between the fruit and their meal. And when you do offer them the fruit, if they finish it, you say, oh, the bowl of strawberries is all empty. They're all done. If you're still hungry, there's lots of different food on your plate. And you have to eat lots of different types of food to help your body grow. And that's my job, to make sure your body grows. And so that's kind of how you present it. As far as, I don't restrict sugar per se. I'm just strategic about it, as I mentioned in my post. Because if you restrict something, a child's going to be, go off on their own. They're going to be like, oh my goodness, I see Lucky Charms, I see Sour Patch Kids. I'm going to eat all of this. But if you teach them and educate them about these types of sugars, and let them know that you can have them, it becomes a learning, process for them, and they understand and they start to make better decisions for themselves. So what I always say is, if you're going to eat foods that don't help you grow, eat the good stuff. So what do I mean by that? I'd rather you eat a croissant or a cupcake or a cookie, that homemade cookie or whatever, versus like red vines or Sour Patch Kids, something with these dyes, these red dye 40s, all of these artificial ingredients and additives and preservatives, because studies have shown that those artificial ingredients and preservatives, they really do impact your child's behavior. It really does cause upset, their digestion. It really causes them to act out. And so you just want to try and avoid those types of things, but let your child make the choice. Obviously, if they're, going out and they see them, like, I'll let them try them, but I try to educate them. Remember, if you're going to have the foods that don't help you grow, the good stuff. Typically, kids would rather have a cupcake because it's bigger than a handful of candy. So just keep that in mind. The other thing I like to do with types of sugars, like more refined sugars, if you're going to give them afternoon snack, I don't like to give them during a mealtime. I like to have it, especially because it can cause problems with sleep, and you don't want to disturb your child's sleep, or your sleep for that matter. So afternoon snack, it's also a way to teach them delayed gratification, because if you present them with the cookie and say, oh, I know you really want the cookie right now, let's save it for tomorrow afternoon for afternoon snack. I want the cookie now. I hear you. I'd want to eat the cookie too right now, but it's going to be dinner, and it's my job to make sure your body grows. So you're going back to those rules of your job. And what we can do is write a note with your name, and to make sure no one touches it. And tomorrow afternoon, that's what you will have for afternoon snack. So that way you're teaching them to kind of wait for it.
Those are great tips, because when I have dessert, I've learned now to serve it with a meal, not later on after a meal, but even going one step further and saying it's afternoon, because I do notice when my kids' sleeping patterns are disrupted, and now I'm disrupted then as well, getting up multiple times or having a child crawl into bed with me. So that's
the question about having snacks in terms of snacking. I know snacking has been a big deal during COVID, because a lot of time on Zoom, they'll say like, okay, go get a snack every break that they have. And the child is constantly snacking, or left up to their own devices, they'll go grab the sugariest snack, So you want to make set snack times. If they do have breaks during school and they have their breaks from Zoom, offer something else. They can have a jump rope. They can jump on the bed, do something fun, something active instead, or have them do some kind of responsibilities, Do you want to do your responsibilities, or do you want to play? Most of the time, children will actually want to play. So if you present it to them that way, it's a choice that they probably are not going to turn down. As far as going to go offer and pick your own snacks, if you're going to have that type of basket available, I typically like to put it in the fridge so that there's certain fruits, or if you're going to set it out that morning, put like an apple or a banana, maybe a bar. I like those Scout bars. Or make your snack plates beforehand. I have them in the fridge ready to go, so that when snack time comes, I just pull it out, or they know to pull out their snack. If they're not wanting what you're offering, you can say, you don't have to eat it. Try not to react and have that, have that resistance between your child and yourself and the snack. Because when you do react, they're just going to say, well, they're going to just bite you to the end. And if they don't want to eat, that's fine, but it's here waiting for you. But soon the kitchen will close. I like to have a time when you're serving snack, and be mindful of, timing. That timing adjusts based on when they get up and what's going on during the day. It's kind of like a routine as opposed to a schedule.
Love it. All of this is such solid advice. Thank you. So if I wanted to wake up tomorrow and say to myself, I want to live a more non-toxic life, I don't know where to start, right? I have certain products that I know are non-toxic, but if I had to pick one room in my house that you feel that there are the most toxic products in typically, where would I start to say, I'm going to start each week by replacing something in my home to make it non-toxic? Where would I start?
Great question. I think everybody's at a different point in their non-toxic journey. So don't compare yourself to anybody else. Like if you're eating completely non-organic and, have no plant-based meals whatsoever incorporated into your diet, try adding one plant-based meal into your diet. Try switching out, your organic foods for the clean dozen versus the dirty dozen, which you can look that up on the environmental working group page. So I think it just depends on where you're going. I don't think you should try and worry about like, oh, I'm using this toxic product. Think the future. Once that product's done, say, let's give you an example. You've got Clorox bleach, don't replace it. Replace it with something better. Most of your cleaning items, I would say, you can be used with vinegar and water and Castile soap, most things. So and baking soda. Those are the things I have in my house. I also love Branch Basics if you don't want to make things yourself. I think that's a great company. Molly's Suds, love their laundry detergent and their dish soap as well. So cleaning products are typically an easy thing because they're constantly getting renewed. If you had to focus on yourself as a parent, I'd say your beauty products, they're constantly, once you're done with your beauty product, just replace it and swap it for a non-toxic one. But when you're looking at your non-toxic journey, the three things I like to focus on first are your air, your water, and your food. Looking up, you can look at the Environmental Working Group water database and type in your zip code and find out what's in your water. And then they actually have a list of what types of water filtrations would be best for you, whether or not it's reverse osmosis or a carbon-based filter or whatever it may be. So you can make the choices that are best for you. With your air, if you can have an air purifier and get one, that would be great. I have, several that I like. And if you can't afford those at that time, open your windows, get an indoor plant. There's a lot of great indoor plants that help detoxify the air. So there's baby steps you can take, or there's things that you can actually invest in.
Those are wonderful because I've started with the air purifier and I started changing out my products and, I feel so overwhelmed, at the moment of okay, now I want to do my pans next and now I want to do this. And this is, ideas, but it's giving me ideas for gifts for myself. Every time someone asks me, what do you want for this birthday or celebration or for Christmas? I'm always stumped. I always feel like I have everything I need. So I've been using that as an opportunity to be gifted things that are non-toxic to make our household better. So that's an
excellent way to do it for sure.
Yeah, it's a lifelong journey, I feel.
It is. And I'm still constantly learning myself. And I wasn't always this non-toxic person. I definitely grew up, eating Taco Bell all the time and thinking Subway was like the, healthiest thing in the world. But you grow and you constantly learn and you just don't want to look back, because when you actually think about it, worrying about it and stressing about it can actually be worse than the chemical toxins that you're actually interacting with.
You're so right. Well, I would love to know what's next for you and Dr. Organic Mommy. And I know you've had to make some pandemic pivots. So tell me a little bit more.
Sure. I'm definitely going to be doing more Instagram lives. People have asked me about teaching classes. So I think that's kind of on the horizon. Where all proceeds from the classes will go to charity. And I've been approached about writing a book. So that's there. It's just trying to figure out the time, as soon as I get my kids down, I've got maybe 2 hours or so before I need to get to sleep, because I wake up, at 4:45 every day to kind of get myself ready. I'm more of a morning person as opposed to a night one. So just finding the time to do that, and probably doing more things like this and going on podcasts. And yeah.
That's super exciting. I'll be the first one to get a copy of your book. I think your life is so fascinating and inspiring and beautiful. And I think it's really wonderful and a lot of people would read it. So that's exciting. And I hope you're able to have that come to fruition. Natasha, is there anything else that you would like to share with us today?
I think in general, when you are feeling guilty as a mom, especially during COVID, I want you to realize that everyone is going through something similar. It's all relative of what you're feeling, and know that eventually this will be over and you can always change. Kids are really resilient. So don't worry if you feel like, oh, my kid's eating too much sugar, my kid's watching too much TV, their sleep is off. You're going to get there, and you're going to address each one of those and detox them away, get them more on a consistent daily rhythm, and you'll get there. It's just hard right now, so you're really in survival mode, and that's all you've got to focus on.
Well, thank you so much. I will take that advice for sure. And I appreciate you joining me today. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode and you had some great aha moments. I am so passionate about empowering women, and I can't thank you enough for your support. If you know an inspiring mama or you are an inspiring mama, send them our way. Be sure to tune in every Wednesday, and please like, follow, and subscribe to The Educated Mama. Write a review, leave us a comment, share this podcast with your friends. I'm Ryan Jordan, founder and CEO of Educated Nannies. You got this, mama.